Welcome back to Sacred Texts Explained. Last time, Genesis 5 and 6, 10 generations, Enoch who walked with God, Noah who found grace, the ark commanded, and a covenant promised before the first cloud gathered. Today, chapters 7, 8, and 9. The waters come, the world is unmade and made again, a dove carries back a leaf, an altar rises on a mountain, and God hangs a warbow in the clouds. The rains begin, and the Hebrew reaches for a special word, the mabbul. It is not the ordinary word for a flood or an overflowing river. Hebrew keeps mabbul almost entirely for this one event, the cosmic deluge, the great undoing. From its first syllable, the text tells us this is no mere storm. This is the unmaking of the world. And the waters come from two directions at once. The fountains of the great deep burst open, and the windows of heaven were opened. That deep is the tehom, the same primeval deep from Genesis chapter 1, over which the darkness lay. On the second day of creation, God had separated the waters above from the waters below. Now those waters come crashing back together. The flood is creation running in reverse. 40 days and 40 nights, and the ark is lifted up on the face of the waters. Everything on dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life blotted out. The text is spare here, almost unbearably quiet about the scale of it. Only Noah remained, and those who were with him in the ark. The waters prevail for 150 days. A whole world submerged, formless and empty again, like the beginning before the first light was spoken. Genesis wants us to feel it fully, the ordered creation of chapter 1, dissolved back into the deep it came from. And then comes the hinge of the entire story, and it turns on one Hebrew word. And God remembered Noah, zakhar. It does not mean God had forgotten him. In the Bible, to remember is to act, to turn towards someone and keep a promise. The turning point of the flood is not the moment the rain stops. It is the moment God remembers. God makes a wind pass over the earth, and the waters begin to subside. And that word, wind, is ruach, the very same ruach from Genesis 1, the wind, the breath, the spirit that hovered over the face of the waters at the dawn of creation. The breath that first began the world now blows again across the flood. Recreation has begun. The ark comes to rest on the mountains of Ararat, the rugged highlands north of Mesopotamia, the region the ancient world called Ararat, at the roof of the known world. After a year adrift, the hull grinds against solid ground. The first firm earth of the new creation is a mountaintop rising from the sea. Noah opens a window and sends out a raven, which goes to and fro. Then he sends a dove, a yana, but the dove finds no resting place for the sole of her foot and returns to his hand. He waits 7 days, sends her again, and this time she comes back with a freshly plucked olive leaf in her beak. That olive leaf, a sign of peace to this very day, is the first green thing, the first word sent back from the drowned world to say that life has begun again. Noah waits once more and sends the dove a third time. She does not return. The waters are gone. The earth is dry. Now this is the point where many first-time readers are surprised. Israel was not the only ancient people to tell of a great flood. In the epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest great poem we have, a man named Utnapishtim survives a world-drowning flood in a great boat, and like Noah, releases birds to search for dry land. The flood was a story the whole ancient Near East remembered. But look at what Genesis does with it. In the older epics, the gods send the flood almost on a whim, then squabble among themselves and swarm like flies around the survivor's sacrifice because they are hungry. In Genesis, there is one God, one moral reason, and at the end, not appeasement, but a covenant. Genesis takes the flood the whole region remembered and retells it as a story about justice, grief, and a promise kept. Noah steps out onto a washed and silent earth, and the very first thing he does is build an altar, the first altar named in the Bible, and offer to God. After a year sealed in the dark, riding the ruin of the world, the first human act in the new creation is not to build a house or a city, it is worship. And the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, ruach, nichoach, and hidden inside that Hebrew phrase is Noah's own name once more. Nichoach, pleasing, restful, echoes noach. The man his father named for rest now brings an offering of rest. The wordplay that opened Noah's story quietly closes it. Rest given, rest returned. Then God speaks, as if to his own heart. Never again will I curse the ground because of man, even though the yetzer, the inclination of the human heart, is evil from his youth. Listen closely. The very same reason God had given for sending the flood, he now gives for never sending another. Human frailty moves from being the cause of judgment to the object of mercy. As long as the earth endures, God promises seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall never cease. The steady rhythms first set in motion in Genesis 1 are re-established here, but now as a vow. The world is not only given back, it is given a guarantee. Genesis 9 opens, and the blessing returns. Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, the very words once spoken to Adam in the garden. Noah stands as a kind of second Adam, and the emptied world begins its story again through him and his sons. But it is not simply Eden restored. The world after the flood is a harder, more guarded place. Now the animals will live in fear of man. Now humankind may eat meat, but never its blood. For the blood, the text says, is the nephesh, the life itself, and life belongs to God alone. And then a grave new law. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God, tselem Elohim, he made humankind. The prohibition of murder rests on the highest possible ground the Bible can name, that every single human being, without exception, bears the image of God. Then the covenant, the brit that Genesis first named before the flood, is now sealed, and not with Noah alone. God binds himself to every living creature, to all flesh, for all generations to come. It is the widest promise in the Bible, the maker of all, pledging himself to the whole of his creation. And he gives a sign. I have set my qeshet in the cloud, God says. Now, qeshet is the ordinary Hebrew word for a war bow, the weapon of an archer. The divine warrior takes up his bow and hangs it in the sky, string down, pointed away from the earth, toward the heavens. He turns a weapon of judgment into a promise of peace. The rainbow is a bow laid down. But the chapter does not end in that glow. Noah plants a vineyard, drinks of its wine, and lies uncovered in his tent. One son shames him, his brothers walking backward cover him, and a curse falls not on Ham himself, but on Ham's son Canaan. It is a hard and troubling passage, and it is one that far later readers cruelly twisted for centuries to justify slavery and racism. The text does no such thing. Its concern is Canaan, Israel's later neighbor, not race at all. Even the New World, Genesis quietly admits, begins with a family's shame. And so Noah's story closes the way chapter 5 closed every story before him. He lived many years after the flood, and he died. The one man who bridged the ruin of the world returns, at last, like all who came before, to the dust. But the earth he leaves behind is no longer under a sentence. It is a world under a promise, marked by a bow of light hung in the clouds. Mabbul and the great unmaking, the God who remembered, the wind over the waters, the dove and the olive leaf, an aroma of rest that echoes Noah's own name, a mercy that meets the very same human heart judgment once condemned, and a warbow hung disarmed in the clouds. That is Genesis 7, 8, and 9. Next time, the earth fills again, the nations spread out across it, and a united humanity builds a tower to reach the heavens until their one language is scattered. Genesis 10 and 11, and the Tower of Babel.